Oh, there it goes. Hey, you guys. It's Monday, and today is horribly lit. Good grief, I'm dark in here. All right. Today is YouTube looks better, if anyone wants to know. That's our main one that we look at. Oh, hey, and I have got volume on. All right. So welcome to our Monday Caregiver Check-In. This is going to be our last Caregiver Check-In. At 5 p.m. At 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So next week is Labor Day.
And we are taking that day off.
Because it's Labor Day in the States. It's also Labor Day for Canada. So since both of us are having Labor Day holiday, we're going to take the week off, let families enjoy spending time with each other. And then we'll come back the following week at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That'll hopefully allow more time for our West Coast folks to join up with us because they'll be just getting off work, so they might be a little late, but hopefully it'll be okay. So again, my name is Darren Fink, and this is the lovely Margie Fink. We are with Transfiguring Adoption, and we run this caregiver check-in because we want to give an hour so that caregivers, professionals, and all sorts of people can ask their questions or share advice about the foster care and adoptive journey. So, hey, I see there are folks joining on Facebook. Hey, everyone, if you wouldn't mind just saying hey, that would be great. And if you've never joined us before, let me tell you how the Caregiver Check-In works, because you don't know because you've never been here before. So our Caregiver Check-In works that we're going to run this for about half an hour, 45 minutes. This is your time. Margie and I do have some topics that we'll talk about, but we just kind of do that so we're not sitting here in silence, and maybe it'll spark something that you're thinking about. But this is really your time, so we want you guys to share your advice on the comments and share your questions on the comments, because we really will get to those and we will talk about them. We've had some great discussions the last couple weeks. These are always logged on our website, so if you miss one, you can always go back and check it out and listen in. And you can also comment on our Facebook page, and we do check those comments, and we our volunteers and Margie and I check them out so that we can see what's going on and who has what questions or what advice and get back to you. So,
which reminds me, there was a late question last week, and I didn't address it on the chat, the actual.
Well, I think you should address it now.
Drop down. No, it wasn't. It wasn't. Oh. It was a specific question, and so I addressed it outside of. I'm just letting everybody know, because we say that we do this and we follow up, and we did follow up, but it was outside of the Facebook comments.
I see what you're saying.
So it looks like we were ignoring.
It looks like but we weren't. We weren't. We're pretty good about it, actually. All right. Well, glad people are here. If you guys wouldn't mind, go ahead and share whatever social media that you're viewing on. If you wouldn't mind sharing that this has started, so that we can let other folks know that they can come and join us, so that we have a better conversation. There's always a better conversation when there are more people involved. You always learn more advice when there's more people involved. So I really appreciate if you would share this out on social media and let people know that we're doing this. So Margie's going to town. She's trying to share. That's fantastic.
I don't do that very often, so.
Oh, really? You don't? Oh, dear. That's not good. Okay.
There it is.
And Margie has hit the share button, and she has shared the chat.
And Kristen Segan has joined. Hello,
hey, Kristen. Kristen, I have so many questions for you that not in the chat, but outside the chat. I have questions for you about some resources. Actually, I will share one, I have one that's a thank you note drive that our ELF squad, which is our volunteer mobilization, is going to be doing. And we need agencies that want to be recipients of these thank you notes. So we're basically having we have all these great volunteers, and they want to know how they can best support foster and adoptive parents. So they're always meeting at least monthly and talking about they're learning and getting educated on foster care and adoptive parent needs. And then, so one of the things is they're going to be doing in November a thank you note drive to not just thank foster parents, but also to validate because they're learning about all the different needs and different things. So, I mean, one thing that we try to tell our volunteers is it's not just about thanking someone or just telling them flippantly, wow, that must be rough, but it's like really understanding them. It's really trying to get into their shoes and just validating them, because so many times I feel like as caregivers, we feel like we're crazy because we're getting conflicting advice or people don't take our concerns as seriously. They're not hearing us. There we go. All right. But yeah, Kristen, I have questions on that about you, about that, not you, about that and some other things. So definitely we need to touch base. What did you have? You had some stuff.
Okay. So, oh, my book is over there.
Your book is, oh, I'll go get the book.
I don't really need it, but
oh, well, it's a cool
it's a good prop.
I think it's fun stuff. Here, show them this stuff.
I don't know what you want me to show. So we were at, some of you know, we've been on the road for a couple weeks. We're finally home and such. Actually, is this our first one from home for a while?
Yeah, we were from the road last week.
So we were at a convention in Dallas, and we had someone donate these fun little soaps in like all different sizes, or I mean sizes, shapes. And they donated those to Transfiguring Adoption. So that was fun.
They did, and well, I was gonna say too.
Some of them though, like we didn't get the ones donated that we were looking at originally. We were looking at some that had toys inside. They're like soap that had Legos, like Lego people inside. And I thought, wow, for some of our kids that really struggle with just hygiene and us as caregivers trying to encourage them to do hygiene, it was just kind of brilliant to me. I thought that'd be really cool because if they want the toy, they have to use the soap. They have to clean themselves.
Well, and that's what I was going to say too, is we have several packs of these. So I think at some point, ooh, these have lots of them too. Like there's so many, they're pretty. But okay, so this one has, I'm gonna see on the Instagram, see, it looks like a frog, whoops. And yeah, look at that, you guys. It's so dark over there. But anyways.
Just comment or give a little note if,
yeah, so we have these really cool soaps. And I think these are going to be really cool, but we have packages of them and they're in different shapes. I think they're going to help if you have foster adoptive kiddos. I think they're going to help them maybe want to use them. And maybe you can have a better time getting them to wash their hands and work on hygiene and stuff like that.
If you've ever had issues with children with hygiene.
Yeah, what kind of hygiene issues have you had?
Major issues with hygiene in the past.
I'm curious what kind of hygiene issues you've had. But yeah. Later on, if you guys can stick with us through the whole discussion, we have 2 packs of these, and we will figure out something before the end of this to send some of these out to your house, so that, yeah, woohoo, so that you guys can get these and tell us if they work or not. Ooh, I even have one that's a blue frog. There's a blue frog in that one. Check that out. That is so cool. In there. There's a butterfly. There's also lightning bolts.
Unicorn?
There's a unicorn. Yeah, there's a pink unicorn. So yeah, let us know. If I want to hear your hygiene issues, maybe I'll look through it. And if you tell us a hygiene issue that your children have had, maybe I'll pick from that.
That's good.
Throughout the week, even if you're not watching live, because we've had a lot of people that have had to get off of here real quick. So yeah. Okay. Anyway, sorry. Go ahead.
So the thought I wanted to discuss. So I'm reading this, The A to Z of Therapeutic Parenting by Sarah Naish. This is something that I will be reviewing. I've been promising this for like, I don't know, a month or so. We've just been crazy busy and I've not gotten to it. So I started it, and if you see, I started like making, I have this bad thing where I read a book and I forget what I've read. And so I've started just making putting these little sticky notes in there and like a little note of what it was that really, really I wanted to remember. I wanted to be able to flip back through to quickly. So I started doing that while we were on our crazy travels. And there was a spot that something was said that just really made me think of a conversation that had happened just a week or so earlier. It's talking about the fear of invisibility. and just about how with unreliable parenting or neglect, abuse, there's just this very, very deep rooted fear of being invisible or forgotten, and just how that drives behavior. And it was interesting because just days before we had been having a conversation with one of our kids,
fear of
and
being
they
invisible
said
or forgotten.
they were talking about a specific instance of something that happened, and they said, after I stopped crying, I went back to being invisible. And it really just kind of caught me, the fact that the child even recognized, in the birth home, this scary thing happened. I cried. People paid attention, but then after
really
I stopped crying,
the fact
that make that stop, please. So after I stopped crying, I went back to being invisible. And we've seen through the years just so much behavior that's driven. And if you start thinking about it, it's like this behavior is this just huge attempt to make sure I'm not forgotten. You still know I'm here. And there's been times where we've literally just stopped and said, it's okay. Like, we haven't forgotten you. We know you're here. Because you can just tell by, like, nonsense chatter, like, is a big one, where they just talk and talk and talk and talk, and it's just absolute nonsense. What are some other ones you can think of? Their behaviors that are just like...
that are afraid that loud noises, like, or just...
being in your space.
Or just even questions that that they know the answer to.
That's kind of part of the nonsense chatter.
Where
or nonsense questions. They're asking questions and you know that they know the answer.
I think I can think of those the most because I think that pushes my buttons.
Yeah.
The most.
So where they're seriously trying to engage you just constantly from dawn till, waking till sleeping. And it's driven by this fear of being forgotten, or fear of, like, this feeling of being invisible.
Well, and what, like, I wonder, like, does anyone else feel like, I mean, as adults, we deal with that too. Like, we don't want to feel invisible. We want to feel like we belong to people. Like, what is, like, what is it like to feel invisible? Like, I'm curious to hear other people talk about that. Like, what is that like to feel invisible? I am curious.
Hi, Wendy. Wendy's back.
Hey, Wendy. I am doing well. Thank you very much. Hope you're doing well. We have Bryant and Wendy watching. Glad you guys are here on Facebook. Again, I'll just tell people real quick before Margie recaps what we were just talking about. If you guys wouldn't mind sharing on your social media, whatever you're watching on, that you just let people know that you are watching so we can have a better conversation. That would be great.
All right, so what we're talking about right now is with kids who've been through trauma, abuse, neglect, just the fear of being invisible, of being forgotten, and how that drives behavior, and what kinds of behaviors that can drive. And then maybe, like, if we could talk about what are some ways to deal with some of those behaviors. So that's the question that we pose to you, is can you think of behaviors that have been driven by your children having fears of being forgotten or being invisible?
So why do you think they have those fears in the first place?
Well, I mean, as children, you're dependent on adults, right?
Right.
So especially as an infant, you think the adults are the way you get food,
right,
the way you get clean.
Yeah, absolutely.
Everything. So you're completely dependent on the adults. If you are forgotten, you will die.
Hey, Laura.
Right?
Yeah, if you get forgotten, you will die. Yeah.
So they're constantly trying to remind us that they're there because they don't want, I mean, it all kind of goes back to this primitive part of their brain that's saying, I'm going to die, I'm going to die. If they forget me, I'm not going to get food. I'm not going to get what I need.
Wow, and that really is, when you put it that way, that makes it really scary. Because I'm thinking as an adult, if I had, I mean, could you think if you were a paraplegic for a while and the only, like, and people, like, I don't know, they just didn't have the best memory or something like that were taking care of you, and you're lying there in bed and they would just like, I don't know, maybe they're watching an interesting television show or something like that, and they just aren't considering your needs. Well, you're a paraplegic, you can't do it. Like, that is kind of scary to think, hey, if I had a heart attack or if something went wrong, I'm laying in bed here and they're watching TV and we'll never know until it's way too late that I need help. So I wonder if that's kind of what our kids go through. What do you guys think? Is that kind of what your kids go through, you think, when they're battling being forgotten? Which is what Margie's talking about. And Margie's talking about it getting, can you hand me the book real quick? She's talking, coming from this book, if you're just joining in with us, it's by Sarah Naish. Sarah Naish is an amazing author. She does quite a few children's books that we've reviewed on our website, actually, at transfiguringadoption.com.
She is a foster adoptive parent, and she also kind of being on that journey kind of drove her to become a professional and working in the field and working with agencies and such. So
yeah, it's the A to Z of therapeutic parenting. And it's strategies and solutions. So this is definitely a cool book. We haven't reviewed it yet. Margie's working on that, but we will be reviewing it. Definitely take a look at it and let us know what you think, and maybe you will be a part of the review. But why do your children, why in there we're talking about children being forgotten or feeling like they're invisible? How scary would that be for you if you felt forgotten or invisible? And what's that look like for our kids to feel forgotten or invisible? Glad to see Laura here.
This is when we pause because there's a lag.
There is a lag, I know.
And it seems like we're on Instagram today, right?
We are on Instagram.
Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. And it's funny because you can tell that they all have different amounts of lag.
Well, and it's funny because you can see
Facebook is probably the worst lag.
Facebook is the worst lag. Like, we could totally be talking 10 conversations later and on YouTube, and Facebook people would just be getting caught up because I'm watching it right now. And you guys haven't even caught up to where I'm at right now. Yeah, I think when you put it that way, though, I think that's incredibly scary for me to think about, that my life depends on people knowing that I exist. Mm-hmm. And you can't, like, coming from maybe a birth home experience where people did forget you mm-hmm. because of whatever reason, like, that is scary. That's like a full-time job. That's not even a full-time job. That's a 24/7 job, is making sure people, because even when you go to sleep, you're sitting there thinking, I hope they remember that I'm asleep, like that I'm in here. So if there's a fire, like, they come get me and I get out. Like, man, this is like a mind blower for me, you guys. Is anyone else? Like, I'm just like.
Well, I think what surprised me so much was that just days before reading that, a kid had said, in my birth home, this happened, I cried. Everyone kind of paid attention, and I stopped crying and I went back to being invisible.
Well, and
so that just, you think about, okay, so what have they learned in that specific instance? If I cry
and go nuts, people pay attention to me.
Right. But then what we know in abusive and neglectful homes is that often that doesn't happen every time. I think this was a pretty serious event. It wasn't just like I was a little hungry or I had a little bump or something like that. It was more of there was something major that happened. I cried.
So then it
was big enough that the adults kind of freaked out about. It wasn't just like.
So if we have kids that are struggling, and I would say that a lot of foster and adoptive kids feel that way, that they're forgotten, or because I'm even thinking some people would say that they're infant. Like, what do you guys think? I would say that even infants would feel this way, right?
Okay, so Laura says, I care for teenagers. It can oftentimes look like breaking the rules to put me first. They can't trust that there will be enough for them or that someone will prioritize caring for them, almost like a rebellious independence. Yes, yes. So we said kind of with the younger kids, you see a lot of nonsense chatter, a lot of nonsense questions where we know that they know the answer. And then with older kids, it can see they're breaking the rules. So they're acting it's all about me and how can I get my needs met.
Yeah, definitely, for sure.
I like that, rebellious independence. It looks like rebellious independence.
And I think that's the hard part too, as foster and adoptive parents, is trying to figure out what's the motive behind the behavior. I think that's the hard part, is not looking at it. I think that's I think that's where we've had to learn things, right? And I mean, we, as in all of us, have had to like get to know, like, okay, why is this kiddo doing this? And this isn't the reason that they're doing this. There's something behind what they're doing.
What's causing this behavior? And so I can look deeper than the behavior and not just say, I'm going to have consequences or punishment, or I'm just going to feel crazy, or I'm going to ignore this. Whatever the reaction is, if we can learn to go, okay, what is causing this and what can we do? Okay, mine aren't my, there we go. Yeah. There's a lag, plus my comments aren't loading very quickly. Okay, so Wendy says, me and 14-year-old son went to see 12-year-old. He is in residential. After being there for 15 to 20, he wanted to stop the visit. I said, let's go outside and play. After being outside 10 minutes, he began to shut down and was mad because his brother said, I don't want to play video games. I reinforced that I don't allow video games. Remember, he takes his anger out on me. I offered to go to the car so he could continue to play with his brother. He refused. Well, he turned his back to me, and so I told his brother, let's go. Well, no adults made a big deal out of it, so he made it into a big deal.
So that's interesting, too, because it's, I don't know, do you think he's, like, it's that whole feeling invisible thing? Like making things, because I think kids do that. I think they make mountains out of molehills, right? If Laura's still on here.
Oh, so Wendy said, so he ran away and attacked staff and trying to hurt himself. Maybe he felt this way. Yeah, for sure.
So I'm interested with Laura. She said she has teenagers. Like, do your teenagers tend to make mountains out of molehills? I'm curious about that. Yeah, Wendy, thanks for sharing that. I think that's interesting. Yeah, like I definitely think, yeah, because if you feel invisible, I mean, I would definitely turn I'd make a mountain out of a molehill, because if I stop, literally all hell is going to break loose in my world. Not everyone else's world, just my world. And I mean, it's survival. Man, this is just, I don't know about you guys, but this is like an eye opener for me. I think this is going to be, she's going to be like making fun of me all night, because I'm just going to be like, man, really? Because I think I've known this stuff, but I haven't looked at it in that light of this. I mean, there's a lot of times that there are things that are done for survival, and something that you would do every day is going to look different when you're doing it to survive. You're going to have a lot more conviction. You're going to have a lot more energy put behind it. You're going to spend a lot more time on it, and everything is going to look different. Like it would look, if I told you to make your bed every morning, I know some of us adults would either not do it, or we would just be lazy about it. But if I told you that if you didn't make your bed, that a firing squad would shoot you promptly, and it had to be neat and everything, I mean, all of us would do it neatly and everything every day. And that's the difference between doing it and doing it to survive. Laura says, definitely, the smallest things can be a trigger for something deeper. Yeah, so I think once that trigger is sprung, right? It's almost like a bear trap, right? Like the bear trap just sitting there is harmless, and it's not bothering anyone until it's triggered, and then it's going to change someone or something's life. Even if it doesn't kill anything, it's still scared the bejeebers out of something. Wendy says, anytime he gets told no, he tends to act like this. And I told staff, honeymoon is over. Welcome to my world. Yeah, you gotta love when the honeymoon's over, don't you? Laura also says, sometimes they aren't even able to explain or make the connection themselves, but I can sometimes see patterns and then recognize why this teenager feels blamed or ignored, afraid, etc. And those emotions can come out by distracting themselves and getting, or by distancing themselves and getting disrespectful. Yeah, that's good insight, I think.
So whenever Sarah Naish is talking about this, the fear of invisibility, she says nonsense chatter, which we talked about, anxiety-based behaviors, anything that seems driven by fear and anxiety, following and aggressive or rude behaviors. So if, like I said, if they're constantly in your space or very aggressive or rude, basically anything that's designed to press your buttons and forcibly remind you that they're there. That's kind of that stuff that can be driven by that fear of, when you said, if someone paid me, I know I would make my bed. LOL. Yeah, I never make my bed. Okay, so this is totally off topic and nothing to do with anything, but I never make my bed because I always like had this thing, I'm just going to climb back in it and mess it back up. But if someone was paying me, I would definitely make my bed.
Yeah, I knew that's where it was going. And I couldn't stop it. I just saw it coming. I was like, yep, we'll just let it go. Okay, now get us back on
So what
track.
are thoughts of on so if the root of these behaviors are that the child feels scared, that they're invisible, that they're going to be forgotten, what do you guys think are some practical things that we can do to help with those behaviors, to help meet that need? Because the thing is, if the behaviors are need-driven and we can meet the needs, then the behaviors are going to eventually slow down, diminish, maybe even disappear.
We would hope.
We would hope. And this is, we talked last week just about how long it can take. You know, it can take a decade even to see, you know, you're constantly throwing interventions or things at behaviors before you really see an impact. And that can be disheartening. It can be where you feel totally defeated. You feel like you're getting nothing done. But the reality is that it takes a long time to undo and to rewire the brain into these new pathways, to take away some of these fears that are so deep-rooted.
Yeah. So what are things that you guys do now that we've talked about these kids that they don't want to feel forgotten, and so they're going to do things to push your buttons or to make themselves known, impress themselves upon you. What do you do so that they can train themselves that everything's okay? Wendy says, I know her son misses his biological mother. I know he worries about her and was mom's protector. He may have these inner feelings about her, right? I think sometimes I think it's awesome that you know that, because I think that helps us then to be able to go back and say, I don't know, just when you see a trigger coming, just like things like, you know, I know you did everything you could to help your mom, or you did, like it wasn't up to you, or I don't know. There's just like a lot that you can do when you know the information and you know what the triggers are, because you can help. When you know where the bear trap is at on the ground, you can walk around it, or you can avoid the area altogether, or you can have a lesson on how to not get caught in a bear trap, or I don't know. Like there's so many different analogies there, but that all fit. But with the triggers, like you can either avoid them if they're not going to be healthy. You can talk through them, or yeah.
Do we have Charlie Chatty over there?
We have Charlie, of course, somewhere. Why don't you talk?
Okay. I was just, because Charlie Chatty is obviously one of the ones that deals with this stuff.
Charlie Chatty does a lot.
Okay, so Charlie Chatty. So we're talking about something that we started thinking about because of Sarah Nash's book for grown-ups. But her and one of her grown adopted children have been doing this therapeutic set of children's books, and we've been reviewing them on our website, that have just a lot of the things. They're actually modeled. The books are modeled after her adopted children, and so they deal with some of the things that our children deal with. But I think the thing that's great about books like this, that's directed at the child. So this is Charlie Chatty and the Wiggly Worm. Yeah, I can't see any. I'm like, there we go. Okay, so it's Sarah Nash, and Rosie Jeffries is one of her adopted children. And it's, so Charlie talks so much that her mouth gets dry, but there's just so much to say. Why is the pavement brown? I have got 2 shoes. Everyone has 2 shoes. I can hear the radio. Who is on the radio? Why is there a button on the radio? Sometimes Charlie's imagination takes over, and she tells stories about things that didn't really happen. She doesn't need to, but she likes how it makes her feel important, and the wiggly worry worm inside her tummy goes away. Written by a mom who understands and her daughter who also like to tell tales. This is a story for children functioning at ages 3 to 10. So, I think, were there any other Charlie? There's
another one. Yeah, Charlie Chatty makes another appearance, but it has nothing to do with her chattiness.
Okay. So this one has to do with her chattiness, and like backwards. That's why. Okay. So, and the wiggly worry worm, it talks to help the children understand, because a lot of times and it was mentioned here earlier, that a lot of times the kids are behaving certain ways and they don't even know why, and they can't necessarily explain it. So there's a lot of power for the kids that comes out of helping them understand themselves, why they behave certain ways, what has caused that, and to somewhat normalize it for them to understand, I'm not the only one dealing with this, and for them to kind of have some ways to, as they get older too, to empower them and to help them be advocates for themselves, to be able to say, I tend to do this. This is why I tend to do this. There's empowerment. There's change that can come out of that. So this is a great tool.
I missed where this came in, but Wendy says, "Oh my, that reminds me. My 14-year-old didn't know milk comes from a cow." It's pretty amazing because there's so many things when you have kiddos that are coming from foster care or adoption. By the way, hey to Rachel. Rachel's on here. If they bounced around so much, it's kind of amazing because I've had an adoptive dad tell me that when he had foster kiddos in his house, that they took them to the zoo and the kids had they'd never known that monkeys existed. And so they saw monkeys for the first time and just totally blew their minds. But I will say that we have a child in our home that when the child was of an older, let's say 12, let's say 12 years old, that this kiddo said, this kiddo believed that everything that happened on TV was real.
As in like movies and even cartoons.
Yeah. It took a long time to explain that this is actors and stuff like that. It was interesting. Wendy's asking, are those books on Amazon? They are, and actually if you go through the link that I provided on Facebook, click on we actually, on the bottom of every discussion that I do with my son Dalton, we have a discussion guide on there, and then actually we did this one with Jasmine. At the bottom, we have a link that says buy from the link, and that will send you to Amazon's page to buy the book, and Transfiguring Adoption actually gets a small percentage of a small, but better than nothing percentage of that purchase.
So any books that you see that we're reviewing, if you buy off of Amazon, please go to our pages and go to our website and go from our links to Amazon. So it'll do a little bit to help to fund these, being able to do this and have a website.
And we do have discussion guides on there. The discussion guides, for some of you, you're going to be sitting there looking at the questions going, no big deal, I can do that. And that's great. But we have found that some people just don't have the time to be creative and figure out questions. So we've done the work for you. So these just give you a good leaping off point, just like we're doing here. Like we come up with a topic and hopefully that gets you thinking about things and we have a discussion. So that's what we do. So yeah.
Okay, so Laura said, one of my kids went to SeaWorld for the first time this year and he honestly talked about it for weeks. I've never seen him show me so many pictures. It was one of the biggest deals of his life and it was so precious that he got to have that fun experience. I had so much fun just getting to share the, experiences with the kids. I know at one point I took our 4 very early on. They were probably 3, 6, and 11, something like that. And I knew it was the little kids' first trip to the beach. And it wasn't even like the ocean. We were just going to the lake, to the beach. And then on the drive home, the older kids said something to say that they'd never been to the beach. And it was just like this really fun experience. So I think you were working or something. You came home, and it was the same kind of thing where they were like, we did this, we did that, we did this. You know, sharing pictures and experiences of going to the beach for the first time.
Right. It's pretty amazing. I think the hard part is with our kids is wanting to have those experiences all the time, and you want to get, well, because I mean, I think most of us that are getting into the foster and adoptive journey, we're wanting good things for the kids, and we are hoping to give them a better life. And so I think with some of these experiences, I think we set the bar high. And I know I've talked about it before, but I think we set, and I'm getting this from Dr. Karen Purvis's teachings, setting the bar too high, because then all of a sudden, like when things fall through, because what we're talking about, like what if we trigger something on that we don't know about, or what if something happens and they feel invisible, or something happens, then all of a sudden that trip where you were hoping that they would see a sea otter for the first time and be like, what, a sea otter? There's like a little thing that runs, or what? Like, instead of having that moment, you might have like they sabotage it, or that something happens, then all of a sudden the whole day is ruined because you had it built up in your head that it was going to be this amazing day where you blew their mind. I don't know. So, like, I don't know. Like, how do you guys approach those kind of trips? Because obviously we want those moments with our kids. And that's not a bad thing. I think we want to give those moments to our kids. How do you guys approach those? Like, with what we were talking about earlier, with kids feeling forgotten or invisible, we know that they're going to have reactions to those. They're going to make sure that we know that they exist. They're going to press buttons. So if you're on a trip and that happens, what do you do?
Maybe we can just go back to talking about, in general, ways to deal with these behaviors. How can we help them to know, to really feel that they're not forgotten, that they're not invisible, that we always know that they're there. You know, there are times when, as a family, you might all be in the same room, but you might just be quiet. But that doesn't mean that you don't know that they're there.
Right.
I mean, that's when we see a lot of that kind of behavior of just loud or in your face, or nonsense chatter, nonsense questions. So what are some things that we can do? One, so that our buttons don't get pushed and we don't get crazy. But two, to make sure ultimately that we've met that need.
So Wendy is saying it's amazing because we almost have to start completely over. And I think when talking about this, I think that's almost true for like addressing like the child feeling invisible and the different things. Is you have to understand, like, in some way, a lot of ways, they are an infant. Do you guys agree? Like they can be an infant because they've missed that stage in their life where they don't have that security. They didn't have possibly the mom that was holding them in the crook of, you know, her arms and looking at them. And when someone cried, someone ran and said, you're okay, here's a bottle. Like, there wasn't someone there to like address those needs right away. So I think we are kind of starting completely over.
So Wendy says the only thing is that I can never ever talk about his mom. It's his trigger. So I wonder if there's ways, and I know you don't always have quality therapists, but ways you can talk about, and that's one thing where bibliotherapy, we found, like anything where we're reading books and you don't have to talk about directly.
You don't directly have to talk about the mom, but you're talking about someone else's mom. That might be, like, it might be that you could, or even a movie, like you could even talk about a movie. It works the same way with a movie. One of these times I actually have a workshop on bibliotherapy and on how to use it. But there are intentional ways. Like, it's basically, bibliotherapy is what a counselor would use to intentionally take your life and the book or media that they're subscribing or prescribing to you, and they intentionally merge them together and help walk you through that, where otherwise what we tend to do as people is we tend to say, wow, that character really has it bad, I feel sorry for them. And we don't, like, we have no, like, we don't, I don't know why, we have blinders on as people, and we don't see, oh, they're going through the same thing that we're going through, and this is how it connect. Like, we don't always see those connections unless someone blatantly points them out. Laura says, yeah, she took her kids airboating once and was disappointed that they were all pretty unimpressed. I imagined it all going a certain way, and instead it was freaking hot, and we only saw one gator. They were pretty miserable. I had to let it go and refocus on the time with them instead of the ideal experience. Oh my goodness, yes. That is the attitude that we actually have for. So when we, Margie and I, we go to the theme parks quite a bit. Here in Orlando, we go to Universal a lot, but we also would go to other theme parks when we lived other places. And we finally learned that we had to adopt that if we were going to have a good time at the theme parks. And we always have, I think we have probably 90% of the time have a good time at the theme parks now with the kids. But just like understanding that, I don't know, you're focusing on
we've
this.
Talked a lot, we've done several things in blogs about holidays or special events or vacationing, traveling, about expectations. Our expectations and the kids' expectations, and kind of rearranging them, making them realistic, and in some cases just doing away with them in general.
I think that
we're not disappointed. And
I think that's something that's important.
Behaviors.
Right. Well, and I think when we're talking about kids feeling invisible and acting out, I think that's really important for this because, like, I think it becomes a way of life, really, like where we have to, instead of focusing on other things, we have to we have to focus on the needs of our child at that moment, and we can't completely have everything taken over by, hey, we're going to plan the perfect birthday party and this is going to be the perfect day for my child. Like it might not be. Like maybe like as the party's getting ready to start, maybe they need to go up to their room and they just need to be by themselves, or they need you to like, and maybe it turns into, guess what? I am entertaining like 26-year-olds without the birthday girl or boy. And that's what your child needs at that time. And so not what we want for our kids, but that might be what they need. Hey, Jen, glad Jen's on here. We have Rachel on Instagram. So we are talking about kids feeling invisible, kids feeling like they don't exist, and just that fight for survival to constantly make adults remember, hey, I'm still here.
So Wendy says, I know that my boys fear gators so much. They freak out on me if I say we are going to Florida for spring break. Like gators are everywhere you go. Yes, we've lived here since May, and we've never seen a gator. I mean, like, the only time we've ever seen a gator in Florida is when we specifically went to a wildlife area, or like a nature preserve where there are tons of gators, and we walk. And it's so crazy because like we were counting the gators, they're like just right there. It's kind of one of those things. They don't mess with you if you don't mess with them. But,
that's true.
Yeah, it's true. So.
Hey everyone, and while we have more people that are actually getting a chance to join in, if you guys wouldn't mind sharing on your social media that you are watching, just so people, we are wrapping up, but we're going to do this again next week, or not next week, we're going to do this again in a couple weeks. Right.
While we have everybody on.
While we have and you're sharing.
Just a reminder, Rachel says, yay, survival behaviors. Yes.
Ooh, you can sense the sarcasm in that one.
So next week is Labor Day, Canada and the US. So we are taking next Monday to not do caregiver check-in. And that's going to be our transition into the second Monday in September. The date escapes me. But that will be a 8 o'clock Eastern.
Right. So this is the last time that we were doing the caregiver check-in at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
In the hopes that as we go forward, more people can.
It will be September 10th.
Yeah, so
will be September 10th. Yep. Rachel's commenting already. She said September 10th. September 10th will be our first time. Next time after this meeting. Be sure to tell some friends. Tell your caseworkers. Tell your agency workers that we're doing this. If you're having fun and you're having a good time and this is helping, please tell people. Rachel says, I got you. So, yeah.
Laura says she's got to run and cook dinner. Taco Monday. Have a great night, guys.
Taco
Thanks
Monday.
For the great conversation that reminded
Oh, I want Taco Monday. Doesn't that sound good, Taco Monday?
We're having salad Monday.
We're having salad. That's okay.
It's going to be a good
I can do that. It's going to be a great salad.
It's going to be even better because the 14-year-old, like this summer, has like just really taken on more and more responsibility, and we love it. On Mondays, she's like, "You guys need me to make dinner." So while we're on here doing check-in with you guys, she is making dinner, and it's perfect because we'll get done here and it'll be about ready.
Felicia, you want to read that?
So Felicia says, we are a huge book family, so to kind of try and help ease that concern for our most recent placement, we always read with him, and because he didn't get that as a child, it was such a big deal. Yeah, we saw that so early on too. Like there was so many books that just we read with the kids. Every night we would read, and a lot of times we read stuff that wasn't even really necessarily age appropriate. We had some older elementary, but things like The Runaway Bunny that keeps trying to run away, and mom's going to go after him no matter what, or I Love You Stinky Face, like no matter, and just all these kinds of books that no matter what, we're going to love them. We go through just kind of like we get done with the book and say things like, so would we still love you? Or, early on too, just whatever. Language changes as placement, you might not be telling your child right at first, I love you, because love might be a very warped understanding for them. But yeah, anyways, just helping them understand. So are we still going to care about you? Are we still going to take care of you if you break a window, if you do this, if you do that? And a lot of times books help you to kind of talk through that and ease those fears and connect.
See, I think I love the power of books. I think it can be hard for some, because if they're, I think it has to be a trained thing, because if your kids weren't used to it, they might not want to sit and listen. And we do have some kids that they listen for again, it's lowering the bar and lowering your expectation.
I tried that to bond, and my boys never listened. Yeah, it's hard. I mean,
well, that's what I'm. Yeah, I think if they've never had the reading and the expectation that you sit and listen, I think, again, it's going back to what I think Wendy even said it.
Well, and Felicia says, when I read the Littles bedtime stories, I would find him creeping in the hall to listen, and eventually he would join us as we started with We Care About You, and eventually evolved into We Love You. And we saw that too, like the older kids. Like we didn't think the older kids would want to do stories, and they kept kind of creeping in, and then it became. But I think
the hardest thing I was going to say is our youngest actually now doesn't stay in the room, and I think it's part of lowering the bar and just. I mean, they've been with us for so long that we do have times where we say we expect you to sit and listen for X amount of time. But again, it's lowering the bar, and then after that time goes by, if he gets up and walks away, we hate that because we're not getting to spend time with him, or we're missing a chance to interact. But that was his choice to get up. You know what I mean? So I think you have to read your kids, and I think there's training that goes on because they haven't had this all the time.
And sometimes it's just finding the right book, because we did not all books reached our kids.
Right, that's true.
And there's sometimes that, I mean, later on. And I know some of you might have heard this story before, but we ran a summer camp kind of early on in our journey, kind of underneath Community Kids, which is kind of what Transfiguring Adoption came later. But in Illinois, we had a grant for a respite grant, and we did a summer camp. And during that time, I found the Robbie the Rabbit series, and Robbie the Rabbit was Robbie the Rabbit's Trail through Foster Care. Yes, so this one, Robbie's Trail Through Foster Care. So I read this at the summer camp, and we had kids ages, 4 to 14. They were all either in care or adopted. I don't think we even had any birth siblings in the group. It was all kids who just happened to be fostered or adopted. And it was amazing because we read this book and the kids started talking about it. And it was the first time they had seen a piece of media that they could really relate to. And they we would go to, okay, now it's free time. So do you want to go out on the playground and play, or we're going to do this? And time after time, they would say no. And I'm talking like the middle schoolers and entering high schoolers. They were saying, no, will you please read Robbie the Rabbit to us again, and let's talk about it, because it was the first time that they could find something, they knew something that they could relate to. And it's a series So there's Robbie's Trail through foster care, there's Robbie's Trail through adoption, and then one through open adoption. So it kind of hits both things. But Robbie starts out as a foster child, so it's all foster care adoption. And then there's like some smaller books, Wanting to Belong, Meeting My Casa, and Moving to a New Foster Home.
Yeah, I think, but to go back to what we were talking about is, I think books definitely are powerful. And what I was talking about with bibliotherapy, again, we have discussion guides on our website. If we review a book, if you want us to review a book and do a discussion guide, please email us at info@transfiguringadoption.com, and we'll see if our team can handle that at the moment, but we will get to it. But the books are powerful. I think it's a way for kids to connect. I think Felicia might have been hitting on it, like where they can connect and you can talk. It's just something that they've missed, and it's an important tool where you can talk about things without directly talking about the child having to
process things in a non-threatening way. They don't have to.
But for Wendy, like again, I will say, movies do work well too, and for teens, that is phenomenal. I will like even the Guardians of the Galaxy
say, like,
too.
A couple of our kids that were older when they came. Books were a little bit harder because, one, they didn't really have the reading skills and the vocab. But they also, we saw they didn't really know how to play or pretend. And that also rolls over into books in that they can't picture what's happening in their heads necessarily. So sometimes we were watching a movie, or sometimes we watched the movie first and then read the book. That's
and we haven't done
stuff.
And I know we even had foster kiddos in our home, and the Guardians of the Galaxy, the second one, that deals with a lot of
daddy issues,
foster care and adoption type, like with the birth parents, and questions and like having harsh feelings. But like, I think you can get into a healthy conversation by watching stuff like that, as long as it's not triggering. And it's something that all the other kids at school are watching, so why not take that advantage and talk? We haven't made a discussion guide with it. We should, but if you want us to, let us know, and that'll put it up at the top of our priority list, which it is not right now.
As we were once told by a therapist who works with foster and adoptive kids, families, you need to stop shooting on yourself.
We need to stop shooting.
We do a lot of that as caregivers because we can't do everything.
Wendy says, I think my boys thought every home was just like the way they grew up. Absolutely. Books was too hard for the boys. Even toddler books was too hard. Yeah, and that's rough. You really are starting over.
Yeah.
Hey, you guys, we're going to need to wrap up here. So if you guys have any comments or suggestions or anything else.
If there's something you want to talk about next week.
Well, no, 2 weeks. Week, 2 weeks.
2 weeks on September 10th. If there's something you want to address as a group on September 10th.
And I still have my soaps that we were donated that are in the shape of animals and unicorns and frogs and different things like that. If anyone, I have 2 packs of these that I will mail out. If anyone wants these to see if they will help their kids with hygiene, comment below, and I will direct message you on Facebook or YouTube or Instagram, and we will figure out an address to send them to. But they're really cool. They've got some really cool things. Felicia says foster parent support and placement stability. I would love to talk about that. I think I might need to know a little bit more what you want to hit with that, Felicia. Placement stability. Yeah, tell us what you want to talk about with that more. I would love to talk with that more. Again, we are going to be in 2 weeks, September 10th. It's going to be at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, you guys. Don't forget to tell friends. The more people that we have on here, the more conversation we're going to have, the better time we're going to have, the more advice you're going to be getting, and learn so much more. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that we need to tell people. Is there? We have, no, that's for our volunteers that they need to know that. One thing that we are looking for, I will throw it out there, is we are looking for businesses in local areas that would like to help sponsor us, that would like to help donate to keep stuff like this going on. I know it seems like it's Facebook, it's free, but there's actually man hours that have to go behind.
Well, and it's a lot more than just, so when Felicia's asking about foster parent support and placement stability, and that's a big drive of everything that we're doing. And if you're not familiar with our website, check it out. There's a lot more than just the caregiver check-ins that we're striving to do and things that we've done, but funding is low, and there's a lot of things that we want to be getting to our foster and adoptive parents, like calm down kits and things. So Felicia says, agencies being unable to provide support and due to lack of support, rehoming children time after time. Absolutely. And Wendy is saying absolutely. So no support is hard. We need more than just talking. Absolutely. And
you guys will be interested to know, again, what people don't realize is we are starting up these things called, we have a grassroots movement. Actually, Rachel that's on Instagram is over that. We have a grassroots movement called Elf Squad. And Elf Squad is a group, I mean, it's a funny name, I know, but they're a group of individuals that are concerned about helping foster and adoptive parents. Jen Allers is watching on here. She's actually a representation out in Virginia.
Getting the love.
Jen and Rachel are amazing because I know that they are watching on here, and Bryant was on here too. Earlier. I don't know if he still is. But they just want to do more for foster and adoptive parents. They're actually on here listening to you guys, seeing what you need, which is amazing. We need more people like that. But they're doing. So the more we can get corporate sponsors, grants, things like that, that is our goal, to be able to have in our different areas that we're serving. And as much as we can get that, Wendy says system needs an overhaul. And Felicia just met with Jen. She's wonderful. And she's so excited about the Elf Squad. Awesome. Yes, Jen. But if you guys know, of any businesses that might be willing to help support us, actually get that information to info@transfiguringadoption.com. The lovely Margie would be the one speaking with them and talking to them and showing them. We have metrics and numbers. That's why we ask people to fill out our surveys all the time. We have some great metrics showing how doing things like this and other things are actually helping you guys. And the more that we can show how these things are helping, the bigger and bigger support that we can get for you guys. So please, if you know of any corporate sponsors, local businesses in your area would be the best place to. Margie would love to talk with them. We just need to get a contact name so that she knows who to talk to in your area, because we're in Orlando, Florida, and we are not necessarily in your area. So that's all the information I'm going to give to you on that, because I'm probably boring everyone. But I hope not, because you guys are amazing. Thank you so much, everyone, for watching. We'll see you September 10th at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Don't forget to share with everyone you know to join us. I hope that you are learning a lot from this. I hope you're gleaning a lot from it, because I know we are. It blew my mind this week. Thank you so much for what you're doing. We hope we're helping to nurture and grow your foster or adoptive families. Thank you, Facebook, and thank you, Instagram, for watching.
Have a great couple weeks.
All right, and YouTube viewers, thank you so much for watching.